Hey everybody, it's Norm and Will back for a very special episode of Behind the Garage Door. Today we're going to take a short trip downstairs into our showroom, meet up with Mr. Hurley, and show you an incredibly cool custom Camaro. Beautiful showroom. Steve, good to see you again.
Good morning, Norm.
Thank you so much for taking the time to tell us all about this car.
Absolutely.
So we've had this car done for a little bit, and I have been dying to share it with people. So thank you for finally making the time to come down and talk to us. Tell us all about this amazing 68 Camaro.
Of course. This car came to us quite a while back. It was actually a trade-in, and it already had an LS2 engine and a manual transmission, but the car really wasn't finished. It needed a lot of help. It was a red car, actually, when we traded for it. And so I thought, you know, it's already a rest-a-mod in progress. Why don't we go ahead and finish the car and just take it to the next level? And that next level went pretty much more levels than I expected.
I think you passed like 9 levels.
Right. We went through a lot of levels to get it to where it is today, because this is what I think is one of the best of the best.
Oh, no doubt about it. I'm obviously a little bit biased because, you know, I've been around the car, you know, for the last 2 years as it was, you know, being finished and everything. So what's under the hood? What drives it? Tell us everything.
Well, we decided to go ahead and go with an LT4 Z06 engine. So it's a crate engine, came from here at Stingray, 650 horsepower, backed by a 6-speed Tremec transmission. And the really cool thing, and this was part of what I've been wanting to do before we even got this car, was to do a front and rear height suspension. And the reason I wanted to do the height suspension in particular was because of the independent rear suspension. I thought, what a cool idea to have less unsprung weight, make the car handle better, give it a really almost a pro touring type build and look, and really kind of have that wow factor when you look through the wheel and there's no rotor outside by the wheel. The rotor's inboard, just like some of the early 1960s Cobras with the independent rear suspension and the inboard rotors.
I've watched a lot of people walk around this car, and the custom touches that we'll get into are so subtle. You can walk around this car 10 times and catch something different every time. But the thing that I've noticed a lot of people do is they stop at the rear wheel and go, where's the brakes?
It's such a cool look to just look right through there,
yeah.
And there's nothing there but an axle, and of course you see the suspension. And speaking of the suspension, something I wanted to mention that was part of the design and build, we put a lot of thought into this, Norm, because if you'll notice, if you really study this car and look at it closely, the underneath of the car, the subframe is a metallic gray color. Now, all of your control arms and your moving pieces are silver. That was intentional.
Okay.
So as you look at the car and you look at the build, the third member, the rear section of the rear end is metallic gray. Your subframe, as I mentioned, is gray. Your subframe connectors are gray. Your control arms are silver.
Yeah.
And so anything that moves, any parts of the suspension, all is silver. So it's kind of a design cue that we put in there intentionally. And then the brakes, we talked a little bit about the inboard brakes. They came out as it came with Wilwood brakes.
In the back.
In the back.
Okay.
And of course, we thought we'd put Wilwood brakes in the front.
Okay.
But they were just not large enough. We wanted large rotors, big 6-piston calipers, and I've done builds before with bare brakes and have been very, very happy with them. And so we decided to go ahead and put bare brakes in the front and then remove the Wilwoods and go ahead and buy Wilwood 4-piston caliper brakes that would fit and paint them orange like the front brakes.
Oh, the front of this, the way that the caliper matches the car with the bare in black, matches the stripe, and I mean, those are trash can lid size rotors. Those are unbelievable.
It makes for a great look. These wheels are Forge Line 3-piece wheels that are a one-off design for this car.
So these are built for this car?
They were built for this car. We measured the offset front and rear, and they're tucked up really nice and tight, but do not ever touch the car.
No rubbing.
Which is no rubbing at all, which is really, really nice.
Steve, as we move over to this side of the car, and now that we got a little bit more light behind us, now I can see the actual size of those rotors. They're huge, and the way that the calipers match the color of the car, and how the black and the bare, it just picks up everything. It's just so subtle and so perfect.
Even the black writing where it says Bear and then the 6S for the 6-piston caliper, that's actually intentional, as well as the black stripe. You'll notice that that's a Camaro style stripe from 1968, and it's in a color called Carbon Flash. That's a Chevrolet color, and if you look at any C8 Corvette, the front and rear fascia, and oftentimes other parts of the car, but always the front and rear fascia, are what they call Carbon Flash. And that color came out back when we had the 100th anniversary for Chevrolet in 2012. They actually made a Carbon Flash edition, that color was on the Corvette. And so they've carried that as a theme with Corvette, and it was a real Chevrolet paint color, so we wanted to do it in carbon flash.
What is the name of the orange?
There's not, I don't know the particular name, but the orange, that's a great thing to bring up, Norm, because
it looks like Hugger to me, but
it's similar to Hugger Orange. It's much deeper, more bold, brighter than Hugger Orange. If you parked a 1969 Camaro next to this in Hugger Orange, it would make that car look dull. This is much brighter.
Yeah.
And we wanted something to make a really awesome impression. And also, you'll notice that it's a gloss finish. It is not a pearl finish at all.
No,
and the reason we did that is because this car was painted on a rotisserie, and we painted the bottom of the car to look just like the top of the car. And if you ever had to do a touch-up, you couldn't really ever match that pearl finish. And so that's why we went with the gloss finish. And we chose this orange. Another reason that we chose the orange, and we put a lot of thought into this, and that's one of the reasons that this build took so long, is because there was so much effort into making sure that we did this just the way we wanted. You see a lot of great Restomod Camaros.
yes.
Almost every one of them is red, white, black, gray, silver. Almost everyone, and that's great. They look good in all those colors, but we wanted to do something that had not been done before, but we didn't want to go so far outside the box that it just didn't have the right look by doing a lime green or a yellow that we even kicked around. So that's why we went with this brighter than Hugger style orange.
You can't, I mean, when you're doing a Chevrolet, orange, I mean, you can't go wrong with that color anyway.
Exactly. It draws attention, but yet it's not something that is common at all. You don't see much of it. And then you'll notice some of the other design features on the car, the Kindig door, flush mount door handles, as well as the trim has been removed along the glass, like a new Camaro is.
Yeah.
And so it's flush, it's cleaner. The front and rear's done that way. You'll notice that we shave the drip rails.
Yeah.
And so that's also a cleaner look. The sport mirrors.
Subtlety is the key of this car.
Update, exactly, but not too garish looking. The front and rear bumpers have been shaved, so that means they're cut and brought close to the painted orange. Again, this is less is more. This car was designed and made to look as clean as possible. You go to the interior, you've got navigation, backup camera, Recaro seats. Those are real Recaro seats.
Wow.
Gray charcoal with orange stitching.
Which picks up the color of the car. That's
And we have
fantastic.
Alcantara accents in the headliner, in the trunk, in the door panels, and it really, really works well. You've even got a center console here.
Yep.
You got your power window switches are right on the center console. Of course, naturally, you'd expect power windows, tilt wheel.
Yeah.
So it's got all the nice amenities, and as you would expect, all the sound deadening, insulation, that kind of thing. So it's much more like a modern car than an old Camaro when you drive it.
You don't drive this car very often, but you have driven it a little bit. Tell us about the drive of this car.
This car, it still feels like a 68 Camaro to a degree, but it is so much quieter and nicer, and it's so smooth. It's an amazing driving car. I was really, really happy with it. And I like the classic cars like the ones behind us that are original, but at the same time, for what this build was intended to be, it's got a tremendous drive to it. One thing I didn't mention as far as the design on the outside, it does have the classic cowl induction hood, which is really favored by your Camaro enthusiast, and then the rear lip spoiler as well. All the lights are LED. The front doors are electric, so they move very, very quickly. They're not vacuum operated by any means. And so we wanted all those modern amenities, but everybody likes the RS front with the hideaway headlights.
Oh yeah, you can never go wrong with that.
And much as I like 69 Camaros, 68 Camaros, which is the original body, the 67 and 68, sans the wing window that you find on the 67.
In the 67.
Those were eliminated for 1968.
Yeah.
But you've got the round arch wheel wells with the original design, which works real well with the curvature. Look at the curvature of the quarter panel, and it's a shorter overhang than the 69. The 69 Camaro, as you know, they squared up and flattened the top of the wheel wells. It's just a little bit different look, and although I like the 69s a whole lot, this 68, this is the original body design of the first Camaro.
Yes.
So as I mentioned, there's a lot of design that went in, a lot of design elements that went into this. A lot went into the theme to make sure that it's not too overdone, but it's all custom.
But the thing that the other thing that we haven't hit on is when you roll up to wherever you're going to go in this car, the subtle touches are amazing. The door handles, the glass, the drip rails, the tires, the wheels, everything else. But there's one custom touch on this thing that puts it really over the top once you get it parked, and that's the hood. Tell us why you decided to go with that design in the hood.
It ended up being more complicated than we expected. It was a bit of it. That was the most challenging part of the build, was the electric hood. But we thought we'd add a little bit of that show car element that's not obvious when you first walk up to the car and see it.
And it's not, and you wouldn't expect it.
But because this is not a type of build where you have lots of flashing LED lights and all this other stuff going on. It's not that type of build. However, that's a little bit of a wow factor when the front of the hood lifts up, then the whole hood tilts forward and lifts up this way, and you see that great LT4 engine underneath and carbon fiber fender wells.
Yeah, I can't, you and I have talked for a few minutes about this car, and we could probably talk for a couple of hours about this car, because there's so many subtle, cool things that we've discussed, but people just have to see it. I mean, this is one of those cars that you just have to see in person.
Yeah, you have to see it. And as you mentioned earlier, you look through the wheels and you see the independent rear suspension with the inboard rotors, and you think that's really cool. Then you go around, look under the bumper, and you really get a good look at all the different colors. As I mentioned, everything fixed in the suspension is gray, the moving parts are silver, and the bottom of the car looks just like the top of the car.
The underside of this car is as clean and as beautiful as the top side of the car. And another thing that I thought was really cool that you did, when you're looking at the car from behind, you purposely didn't leave the fuel cell low. You brought it up into the trunk so that you could see the rear end.
I'm glad you brought that up. That was a lot of work to get a fuel cell and cut the trunk so we could move it up like that, because I wanted from behind, when you're driving behind it or standing far enough behind it and you looked underneath there, that you obviously could appreciate that independent height rear suspension. And that was an intentional design element. Also has an electric rear trunk release. It has a hidden battery switch. I don't think we left anything out.
I don't think we left anything out. I'm sure we did, but I mean, this car is just absolutely over the top. I'm so glad that we finally got a chance to have you in this car on an episode of Behind the Garage Door.
Well, thanks, Norm. I appreciate you asking me about it and featuring it.
Absolutely. Steve, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
We're going to head back upstairs and wrap it up. You know, if you ever have the opportunity and you're in Florida and you're anywhere near Plain City, please swing by our dealership to check out the showroom in that beautiful orange Camaro. After we got done filming, Steve was even saying, he's like, I don't think I want to sell this car. It's just so over the top, perfect and nice, and such a great conversation piece. And I know we didn't take it out and drive it, but she rips big time. Make sure you're here next Thursday for another episode of Behind the Garage Door.
Stingray Chevrolet, relax, enjoy